All right, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Time Out with Doc and Caveman. As always, you're here with Dr. Fantasy and my co-host, the Fantasy Caveman. Before we get rolling, make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts so that you can stay up to date on all of our great NBA content. Today, we are continuing on with our NBA prospect profiles. Today, we are talking about Davion Mitchell, a 6'2", 205-pound combo guard, junior from Baylor last season. As a junior, he averaged 14 points, 5.5 assists, 1.9 steals, 51% from the field, 44% from three, and 64% from the free throw line. So, national championship season for him. Caveman, what fun fact do you have about Davion Mitchell?
All right. So, as we know, like you mentioned, he won the title championship at Baylor. But do you know anything about him before Baylor?
I know nothing. Teach me.
Oh, that's good. So he actually came off the bench in Auburn his freshman year, and he was like, not his words, but he was like, okay, enough of this shit. I'm better than this. Transferred to Baylor, where he obviously sat out, and then due to transfer rules, and then the rest is history when he got the Baylor. So I think that's a good story to say. Oh, he went from being the best. He was the best player on the national championship team last year. But to think if he never made the decision to leave Auburn, we're not even talking about him. So. So that's very interesting to me. And I know this is another guy that you're very high on as well. We just got done talking about another guy that's similar in this perspective, but he has a very high IQ and effort. And this is gonna sound like a broken record. We literally just talked about this in our last pod with Keon Johnson. This is just something you can't teach, and I think he might have the second highest motor out of anybody in this draft class. Similar. He finishes well at the rim for his size as well. Around 60% from the paint, which, given his size, I think is pretty impressive. And then finally, because this is another one of your guys, I want to let you do a good amount of talking here. Elite on-ball defender. He's very quick, and he is not going to be someone that you're going to be able to pick on one-on-one in isolation. And that's going to be big for him at the next level.
Yeah, and the reason I brought up the award that I brought up before we started recording, but he actually won Defensive Player of the Year in all of college basketball last season. That is actually an award that they hand out, and Davion Mitchell was the winner last year. So that just speaks to his defensive ability on the national champions. So obviously, his number one strength lies in his defense. He's going to be an elite one-on-one defender, which I feel like a lot of the guys we've talked about so far, we say they're going to be at least good team defenders. This is a guy that's going to be able to guard most guards one-on-one. So I think he has a nice advantage there. He's just a gritty player too. I just like his style, and offensively, he's not as raw as a lot of people make him out to be, in my opinion. He can create his own shot. We'll talk a little bit about his three-point shooting and free throw shooting, I'm sure, but he was effective as a three-point shooter last season. I don't care what you say about his shot. It's not translating. And that's what I read a lot of scouts say. He shot 44% from three. I don't care what it looks like, honestly. If you're shooting at that high of a percentage, obviously it's working for the guy. And yeah, maybe it's not set up for long-term success, but it's working for him at this point. But the one thing, he played in a lot of big games. And do you know who Baylor gave the ball to offensively when they wanted a bucket? That was Davion Mitchell. He wanted the ball in his hands. And he's a guy that wants the spotlight. He wants the pressure. He wants to be that guy. So I like the way he plays. I like that grittiness, the toughness, the energy, the hustle. I love, and I mean, it's not going to shock you who I compare him to when we get to that, because to me, he's like a carbon copy, and I'm really looking forward to the kind of energy that Davion Mitchell is going to bring to the NBA. But yeah, I mean, I think he has a lot of potential to, honestly, I'm a little unsure about how high his ceiling is if we're being realistic about it, but we'll talk about his weaknesses a little bit. He's a terrible free throw shooter. 64% isn't just bad. That's terrible. It's really, really bad. So that's one thing a lot of scouts worry about, and you're not the only one that uses free throw shooting as a predictor of shooting success. And people worry that long term he's not going to be a great 3-point shooter, but I think that's to be seen, because he was much better last year. We said earlier he was a junior, so his first 2 years he wasn't a very good 3-point shooter. So was his junior year a fluke, or did he legitimately become a better 3-point shooter? I think that's to be determined still, but I think he has the potential to be a great 3-point shooter, and hopefully it was that he just improved. But he with the way that he gets to the basket, I feel like it's really concerning that he's a bad free throw shooter, because this is a guy that has the ability to draw a lot of fouls by getting to the basket. But do you want him drawing fouls with the percentage he shoots at? Honestly, not really. So I think that's something he's going to have to work on. But if we're being honest about it, that's something that can be, I don't want to say easily fixed, but that's something where he can improve upon it with a lot of effort in the gym. But the other thing offensively that I worry about a little bit, but it kind of coincides with the kind of player he is he plays wildly. Like, he's going 100% of the time. And sometimes that does lead to turnovers. I'm sure you're going to mention it, but he's not very good in the pick and roll, because he is not a patient player. He does not want to wait for screens, and he does not want to wait for the play to develop. And that's what screens and pick and rolls are. It's letting your guy get set and then letting the play develop. And he does not do that, because he wants to go, go, go. And if he wants to be an elite offensive player, you have to play with feel and patience. You can't just always go, go, go. So as much as I love that attitude, I love the effort. And on the defensive side, keep on doing you, Davion Mitchell. But offensively, he doesn't have a feel yet. And I think that's going to be the difference between, is he Marcus Smart, who is my number one comparison, or is he going to be a higher level offensive player, which I have some comparisons as well. So I think that's really going to be the difference for him.
Yeah, and you mentioned you knew I was going to bring up the pick and roll game and the free throw percentage. That's kind of my indication. That's always something I look at. But the one thing that I noticed, well, he averaged 5.5 assists. I think this is partly based on his game as well, but he's not the greatest playmaker. I think he has a bit of tunnel vision at times, which kind of leads to some of the turnovers. So I think the thing is, though, while I think that's a weakness based on his game, I think that's something he can overcome or work through to the point where it's not really going to affect him that much at the next level. And I think that's very high praise, that while he has weaknesses, his effort and his defensive ability is enough to overcome them.
Yeah, and I agree. That's what you look for with a lot of these guys, is what's their floor. And I think this is a guy where, like I said, I mean, we're not to comparisons yet, but Marcus Smart to me is his floor. I can't see him having a career less than Marcus Smart, in my opinion. So let's go to some ideal
talk
fits.
About the comparisons now, since we're there.
We might as well. We'll switch it up. But so, yeah, I mean,
I have a feeling one of your comparisons is Marcus.
You guessed correctly. I don't know how you guessed that, but I mean, when I watched him, I was like, this guy is literally. I was confused as to if I was watching Marcus Smart's college highlights. I mean, to me, they're that similar to the. When you even talk about their weaknesses, Marcus Smart still not a good free throw shooter to this day. He plays
Marcus
a little wildly. He turns the ball over. He's not a patient offensive four. Like literally, they're the same player to me, honestly. So I like that. Another gritty defender is Patrick Beverly, who is a little better of a 3-point shooter. But if you take, once again, I mean, can we say Davion Mitchell's a bad 3-point shooter? He shot 44% last year. I don't think. I think it's unfair to call him a poor 3-point shooter. Can you say to be determined? I'm okay with that, but still, the guy, when it mattered, was making threes. So I don't know what you want from him.
won the national championship.
Yeah,
So
what more can you want? Won Defensive Player of the Year, won the national championship, and was the guy offensively too. Like I said, when they needed a bucket in big moments, they went to him. So Pat Beverly and Marcus Smart. I will say he on the offensive side of the ball reminds me a lot of Kemba coming out of UConn. I think he has a very similar. When you think about Kemba and UConn when they won the national championship, he wanted the ball in his hands. He had that gritty mentality on the offensive side of the ball. Kemba never developed that defensively necessarily, but I see a lot of the same kind of traits offensively. Yeah, so I think Kemba and him have, and when you want to be realistic, Kemba isn't the greatest playmaker either. If we want to be realistic about it, Kemba's only averaged a little over 5 assists in his career. So I think offensively he reminds me a lot of Kemba. But to me, if we're being honest, I think that he has maybe his upside is a guy that's Marcus Smart defensively and Kemba Walker offensively, which is an all-star caliber player.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I had Marcus Smart down as well. And a name that ooh, that movie was I've not heard good things about it. But
Same.
so but even wears the same number as him. Has Donovan Mitchell. Not just the fact that they have the same initials, and unfortunately they're not related. That I was kind of bummed to find that out, but his game mimics Donovan Mitchell's quite a bit. Now Donovan Mitchell isn't the level defender that Davion is, but in terms of his offensive ability to get to the basket, wanting the ball in big moments, we saw with Utah last year. Donovan Mitchell was the guy they went to in big moments. And that's definitely and that's kind of why I don't think he's this level. I like him, but I don't think he'll ever be this level. But Damian Lillard, shades of Damian Lillard, as well, just Dame time. And we're gonna have to come up with a new term for Davion Mitchell, because we're gonna have to something time for him. We'll have to work on that. But the name I really love, a guy that's currently playing in the NBA Finals, so that's Jrue Holiday. I think he has Jrue Holiday ability defensively when it comes to guarding the best opposing guard. We're seeing it right now in the finals with Jrue Holiday. I think Davion Mitchell has that level defensive ability. Jrue Holiday is a serviceable 3-point shooter. Not the greatest, which I think. Not that I don't think that Davion Mitchell will be a bad 3-point shooter. I just don't think he'll ever be extremely consistent. Based on his free throw percentage. So I think his upside is what Jrue Holiday is right now. That's kind of where I see his upside.
Yeah, and I mean, if you were telling a lot of people that were picking within the top 10, they could have Jrue Holiday. I don't think they would complain about that. So
the way Jrue Holiday is playing in these finals right now, I think every team would be, and that's the thing I like about Davion Mitchell is we talked we can talk about team fits, but the reality is he can fit with every team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we can go into some ideal fits. So go ahead, Caveman. You were kind of getting into it.
Yeah, since you already kind of got into it with the comparisons and jumped the gun. Pelicans is my number one. Just they need this level defender surrounding Zion. Now, I think he has enough 3-point potential to help New Orleans as well. Especially since we don't know the status of Lonzo Ball and future in New Orleans. Bledsoe, we don't know about if he's going to be with New Orleans next season. So New Orleans could be in the immediate market for a guard. I think Davion Mitchell could step in and probably from day one be their number one defender, if we're being honest. So just from that perspective, another team, and I feel this is a cop out, but the Thunder as well, just based on throwing another elite defender into that system with Shai, with Dort, with Baisley, all good defenders. I mean, they might only score 85 points a game, but you're not going to be able to score on them either if they get a guy like Mitchell. So.
Yeah, and I mean, as much as the Thunder do feel like a cop-out, at the same time, they kind of need a mix of everything right now, if you want to be realistic about it. So that's why really you could put them down for anybody, but they do need a combination of upside too, because that's a team where they have so many picks. At some point, you need that star power, so they're going to need some of these picks to turn into stars too. So, yeah, I had New Orleans as one. I also had the Hornets just because, I mean, I talked about Book Knight being an interesting offensive combination. Completely on the other side, I think that Davion Mitchell is the kind of defensive complement that you need next to LaMelo. And not to mention, I mean,
that gives LaMelo an excuse not to play defense.
I mean, he's never going to, so. So let's just be honest, that's never happening. So I had that, and then I also had Washington, not so much because of what their backcourt is right now, but I think the future of their backcourt is really in question. I don't think anybody thinks that Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal are going to be together forever, so they do need a defensive presence in that backcourt. So I could see that happening as well. So I think that's it for Davion Mitchell. Then we're going to keep rolling here. We'll be in our top 6 players now. And thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.